Well, hi, I'm Jamie Lewis, and welcome back to thebasis.net. We're continuing on in week number 3 of our 8-week quest called Game of Tones. We're going to be talking about speaker cabinets today, and just like last week, this will not be a video where I compare, this brand to this brand, because I don't have every brand of amplifier and cabinet and speaker. It just that'd be way too much. Maybe there's a video out there on YouTube where somebody did that, but it's definitely not me. So you're gonna have to go out and do your own research to find out which companies, line up with your ethics, with your vision, your image, your tone, and especially within your price range. My advice to help you with that is to just go out and play everything you can get your hands on. Go to Guitar Center, go to the boutique store down the street or across town, go to your friend's house, call up a rental company or go to a recording studio, book time there. Like, just try things out. And try them out in different venues too. Because here's the thing, you can play it on the showroom floor and it's like, oh man, that's great. You get the band practice and you're like, guitar is too loud. I can't keep up, right? Well, yeah, it was fine in the room when you get the volume down. So, I mean, bring these things around, which is why renting is really cool. Take it to the stage, take it to the studio, take it to all these different places and see what's working for you. But if you want to know what I play, based on the research that I've done and which company lines up with my ethics and my image and tone and price range and all that stuff we were just talking about, the answer is Aguilar. I found those guys maybe 6 years ago, and believe me, I tried all the other ones too. I spent a long time searching. I found Aguilar, and I love those guys. They're a great company. They make great stuff, not just amps, all their pedals, their pickups, everything they do is stellar work. So the amps that I use are, behind me, I got a Tone Hammer 500. That's the one that goes with me pretty much everywhere. I also have the DB751, which is their big dog, flagship tube head. And as far as cabinets, I have 2 of these 112s. These are DB112s. And I also have 2 410 cabinets. So anyways, that's me and my rig and my sound and what I do. The goal of this video is not to sell you on that, though if you want it, it's all great stuff. I can vouch for it. But the purpose of this video is really to provide you with knowledge and information to go out and make your own decisions. So let's just go ahead and get started. Today we're talking all about speakers. Bass cabs, cabinet enclosures, speakers. I mean, it's all the same word. It's the box where the sound comes out. And it really is important that you understand the different configurations of speakers so that you know what kinds of tones they produce, which is going to affect your buying decision or just which one you choose for the gig or the record or the song or whatever. There's really only 3 common speaker sizes. You'll probably come across 10, 15, or 12-inch drivers. Obviously, there's many more. Some companies produce any combination of those, or I've seen 6s, I've seen 8s, depending on the size. 18s, 21s, but those are kind of more along the size of like that's more like a subwoofer, like a house subsystem would have 18s. Probably not your bass amp, but I have seen it. So what do these sound like? Well, to my ears, the 10-inch driver kind of has the most punch to it, whereas the 15 is woofier and sludgy. Obviously, the 18 would be even woofier and even sludgier, but like I said, those ones are much less common. And the reason for this comes down to air. Sound travels through the air from the speakers pushing it, and bass frequencies are very strong. They're very long and they're very powerful, and they require a lot of air, meaning they require big speakers to be pushing a lot of air, and that's what makes them audible. Think of like when you listen to music on your cell phone. Your cell phone has very small speakers in it, and so therefore it really can't reproduce those bass frequencies on its own. So the larger the wave, meaning the lower the note, i.e. bass, kick drum, those types of instruments, you need a larger speaker to push more air in order for those sounds to be audible. Okay, so the larger the speaker means the more air being pushed means the more bass you get. Cool. So why would you use a 10-inch speaker or a 12? When the 15 pushes, well, why would you use a 15 when you can get an 18? And like, just the bigger the speaker is, the more air. So why would you use any of the smaller ones? Well, here's the thing. If you stack 8 of those 10-inch speakers on top of each other, right? Now you got this refrigerator, this wall of air, this wall of sound that's pushing air more than the 15 could, which is why the 810 cabinet is one of the most common bass amps you'll see on a rock and roll stage. It pushes a ton of air and it weighs a ton. Actually, that's the reason why I use 2 410s. So I can have the sound of an 810 if I want it, but I don't have to break my back and I don't have to bring them both if I don't want to. Okay, so then with a wall of 10-inch speakers, with the 8x10 cabinet, the classic Ampeg sound, you get a ton of air being pushed, but couldn't I just stack two 15-inch speakers on top and get the same exact sound? Well, no, not exactly. And here's the reason why. If you stack two 15s on top of each other, yes, you're going to get more bass. And yes, it is the same height as the 810. And yes, it's pushing about the same surface area of the same amount of air, but it is going to sound different. And the reason comes down to the size of the speakers. The 15-inch speaker is larger, and so it's pushing more air, and it gets this kind of sluggish, woofy sound, is what we call it. Whereas the 10-inch speaker is pushing smaller amounts of air, and that we call that articulation, or we call it punch. Think of it like this. I could move my fingers really fast in comparison to how fast I can move my whole entire arm. It's because right now I'm moving from shoulder to fingertip. I've got more appendage to move. I can't move it as fast, whereas this, I've just got from my knuckle to my fingertips. I mean, I can do that relatively easy. So the idea is this: the smaller your speaker and the more of them you have, you'll still have bass. You won't be losing volume and you won't be losing low end, but you're going to have more cut through, more punch. Whereas the larger your speaker, your 15s and 18s, anything more than that, you're going to get more of the more of the woof, the rumble frequencies. So which one of those is right? Which one of them is wrong? Well, that depends entirely on the genre of music you're playing. If you're doing rock and roll, there's a reason why you see the Ampeg SVT 810 stack on so many stages, because it sounds great. You know, crank that thing up, play with a pick, and you just got wall of sound bass, and it's awesome. If you're doing reggae, maybe you want 15s, because reggae doesn't really, if you listen to it, there's not much of the mid-range and the click and that kind of stuff. It's more of a boom, boom, boom. That's what it's all about with reggae. So probably 15s would do you better in that situation. And keep in mind also, you don't have to have just one or the other. You can mix and match and create totally different sounds. My rig for like about a decade was a 410 cab and a 15 underneath. And I bi-amped them, so only the sub frequencies, only the low ones went to the 15. And then I got all the punch and everything out of my 410. And if you were standing next to it, you could hear the top one and you could feel the bottom one. And so it was great. I've also seen people have like a stack of an 810 stack right next to a 215 stack. And it's like, I couldn't imagine what that would sound like. Or instead of having them lay next to each other, they lay them on top of each other. So it's kind of like they had a 15 and a 410, a 15 and a 410, you know, just this massive wall of sound that would probably melt your face. I would love to play it. But honestly, these days, my solution to the question of like, which one do I want? Do I want the 410 or the 15 or both of them? Now I need to bring two cabinets. My answer is simple. I just use 12-inch speakers now. 12s are awesome because it's a crossbreed between the 15-inch and the 10-inch. It's got some of the woofiness that a 15 would have, obviously not as bassy because it is smaller, but it's also not quite as quick as a 10, but it still punches better than a 15 does. So if you've never tried a 12-inch speaker before, give it a shot. They're really, really rad because they're punchy and they're full. So if I had to name one cabinet to rule them all, it would have to be the 12-inch. They're so versatile, especially in the studio. The iconic bass amp of all time for the recording studio would be the Ampeg B15. Every studio you walk into has had one since the 1960s. And it's great. It's a big 15-inch speaker with a all tube head. It's an awesome sound. I can get a really, really close sound with a 12-inch speaker in the studio. With mic placement, just getting it close to the edge and getting all that woof. Or I can kind of lean it in and get some punch out of it. Whereas if I was using a 15 to 410, I'd have to have two mics. Then I'd be dealing with phase issues and all that kind of stuff. So 12s are super versatile in the studio. And on stage, also great because, again, I get some of the low-end rumble, some of the woof that I'm after, and I also get my punch. And I didn't have to bring two different sets of really, really heavy speakers. I can just get it with that small stack of 12s right there. Now, I want to show you what these sound like. I really, really do. And if you go back to the first week of this Game of Tones series, I was talking about how Mike Pope said, talking about music is like dancing about architecture. And I'm saying words like punch and woofy and I wish I didn't have to do that. But I do, because unfortunately, there is no way for me to demonstrate these for you, not accurately. You see, once I put a microphone in front of these cabinets, your ears are subject to all sorts of variables. Number one, what does the mic sound like? Is it a dark mic? Is it a bright mic? Is it scooped? Is it mid-rangey? And then where I place it in relation to the center of the cone. If you get right up center with the mic, it gets a really bright and direct sound. And the further off axis I go, kind of the more muffled it sounds. And then the further back I move, I mean, there's so many things that are going to affect what you hear that really the only way for you to know what a 10-inch, what a 12-inch, what a 15-inch sounds like is for you to be in the room and play it. Which you can't do that right now. You can't come to the screen and come to my house. It's a mess in here anyways. You don't want to come over, trust me. So my advice to you is the same that I gave you in the beginning of this video. Go out and play a bunch of amps, a bunch of different brands, a bunch of different speaker configurations and combinations of those configurations. Do whatever you can to try them out, not just on the showroom floor, but in the practice room, on the gig. Rent them if you have to. Spend a few bucks to find the right sounds. And keep in mind that you may prefer certain sounds for certain scenarios. In other words, like I said, I have two 410s and then I have these two 112s. Well, why would I want to have that? Well, sometimes I need the power. I need more volume than these guys can give me, and I just want to bring one cabinet. Or sometimes I want that wall of sound, 810, and then sometimes I just want one of these guys because I'm playing my double bass and I really don't need much volume. Or again, studio versus live versus like the touring rig. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios where this sound might work for this gig, but it won't work for that one. And so there's no such thing as, oh, this is the best amp forever and ever and ever. There won't be another one. You're always going to find that there's variation and different ways that you can utilize these sounds. And that's the whole point of this Game of Tones series, isn't it? Now, if after all this, you still want my opinion, my advice on what you should have, which, take it for what it is. It's just my opinion. It's based on my experiences only. I would say you need 3 rigs. And I guess this applies to the working professional. Someone who, like myself, you're on stage, you're in the classroom, you're in the studio, you're in a few different places. If you're only playing in a rock band and the 8x10 works for you, cool, do that. If that's your thing, go for it, right? But if you need to kind of fit a few different scenarios, I recommend up to 3 rigs. The first one, get a small amp. You need to have something that you can just pick up with one hand and take with you because you're rehearsing in a room the size of this. This is a bedroom, right? You don't want to have to lug your 100-pound 4x10 or your 200-pound 8x10 up a flight of stairs to your buddy. Like that's a nightmare. So have something small, a combo amp. For me, my small rig is the Tonehammer 500 and a 112 cabinet, just one of these guys. And, it only takes up more vertical space. So if I wanted to, I could bring the second one. But usually if it's a small rehearsal or, a tiny gig, a coffee house show, I'll bring one of these cabs, my Tonehammer. I'll even sit on top of the thing so that I take up less space. And that's enough sound to provide for the room. Other types of combo amps would be like the SWR Redhead. It's a 2 10-inch speakers with the SWR head. That's another great one. Ampeg has re-released the B15 I was just talking about. That's a great combo amp technically. So something just small with one hand, you can bring it with you. You need to have one of those. Second rig would be something that kind of stays put in the studio. For me, it's mostly this stack stays here. One of these speakers will probably be here at all times. And in the other room, in my live room, I have a 410 cabinet that, again, if I want that sound, it's over there, plug in a mic, and it's ready to go. And if you want to get that third rig, it's the big one. And if you're smart, you'll make it scalable. So for me, like I said, I've got a 410 in the studio, and what's the big rig? Well, it's another 410. I didn't go out and buy an 810 that I can take out. If I just add one more 4, now I've got the, So like depending on the size of the gig, I could bring one of these, 2 of these, one of the 410s, 2 of the 410s, or all 4 of them. Like I could do whatever the heck I want. So that's the big rig. But the big rig for me is just a combination of all of them. And it doesn't get used often, only on larger tours where, we have a lot of stage room and we're going for this big rock band look. Then yes, I'll bring a lot of cabinets. Otherwise, I'm saving my back and I'm bringing the small stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I really wish that I could play this stuff for you, but I hope you understand why I can't. So do yourself a favor, go out and play some amps this week. Check all that stuff out. Make sure you stop by thebassist.net. Our memberships are super affordable. Thank you so much for stopping by. And also, before I forget, pre-orders are still going on for When Will Then Be Now. My album turns 5 years old this summer. And so if you want to pre-order the limited edition anniversary vinyl pressing, a link is popping up right now so you can check that out. So thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next week here at thebassist.net as we continue on the Game of Tones. Hey, if you like what I do, please click on the subscribe button right here. And if you really like what I do, then click over here to see how affordable it is to join me at thebasis.net. But if you just want the free stuff, then click here to check out whatever YouTube's sophisticated robots think you should watch next. I'm sure they know what's best for you.